Welcome my friends of machine guns, arrows to some knees and dirty dancing. 'Tis time to find the best among them, the one that could bring the ring of physical support to Mordor. That supporter who does not simply walk into Mordor alone, but together with his group and supported partners. By the way, Mordor means endgame, sorry for that analogy. Okay, like always the usual disclaimer before coming to the categories. Each and every content this game has to offer can and will be cleared by any job, so your choice should primarily be made out of personal preference. My ranking should mainly be seen as classification of these jobs into their strengths and weaknesses towards specific categories. So let us start with the same thing like usual. The personal damage the job deals while contributing to other group members as well. Okay, here the thing gets a bit complicated. While the Machinist definitely deals the highest personal damage of the three, the difference is killed by any form of multi-dot or cleaving potential, shown in the Epic of Alexander primarily. Although being the most difficult content in game at the moment, Eden Savage is the content that provides gear and the general progress of your character and equipment. Therefore, even when calculating the support and boost Bard and Dancer grant to their group, the Machinist beats them in RDPS in overall Eden statistics. That and the fact also being able to reach 16k DPS in Eden 2, at least what I experienced, the Machinist should at least earn this point in our ranking. Okay, the next one is support, where I will count the contribution of our ranged jobs towards the DPS of others, excluding any defensive support. Starting with the Machinist. You're out buddy, sorry. Okay, Bard and Dancer. Therefore let us check some of my recent log results to see how much contribution I get from a Bard or a Dancer in my group and how other party members are being enhanced by them. On the first log file we see the raid being supported by Bard. And as we were kinda in progress, our healers weren't focused heavily on dealing DPS, so we should definitely acknowledge a value of 1k RDPS contribution coming from the Bard, and actually the real values and results feel quite better than these numbers demonstrate. Okay, so let us check the Dancer. On this Hades run, the supporting abilities were really on point and the RDPS contribution in this run on a whole new level, while still being in proc for many participants and our healers being still eagerly focused on that what a healer should focus on. Nonetheless, the contribution of the Dancer is way higher than that of our Bard. We actually reach a RDPS boost of around 1.2k DPS, which is also perceived much higher in the fight itself. I know it's Hades X with much downtime, so that the big buffs come up nearly in each phase. But on the other hand, we lose the consistent uptime of that 5% buff from the standard finish. Therefore I think it's still a fair comparison to Eden 1 Savage, where we have that big cutscene as well. And like mentioned in my Dancer thoughts, these devilment windows could lead to a complete different dimension, when they are actually timed and optimized from both sides, the beneficiary and the Dancer alike. So actually as expected, the Dancer takes the lead on this category. Coming to utility, this category should measure the capabilities to help your group in avoiding or reducing any form of AoE damage or overall threat emanating from mechanics. Machinist, you have that tactician, right? And? Okay, you're out of this. Okay, so only Bard and Dancer remain on that section. Let us compare the utility skills directly. While both provide the same 10% rate-wide mitigation over 15 seconds, with Shield Samba and Troubadour, the healing support abilities are quite a bit different. Nature's Min focuses more on healing a specific person that mostly is useful when throwing it on a tank. Where these 20% increased healing are heavily useful in tank buster phases like Eden 1's tank busters for example. The Dancer on the other hand focuses more on supporting the party with curing walls, emanating healing with 300 potency from the Dancer and its dance partner to everyone standing next to them. Fun fact, these are handled in the opposite way the damaging support of both is handled. So what can make the difference? While Bard still has another skill in the form of Warden's Paeon, removing a detrimental effect on a specific person, this skill really is not used very often, except TEA maybe, where Bards are the favorite choice mostly. Anyways, both also have to keep themselves in the game, and en avant, the famous Dancer sliding skill is way better than the repelling shot from Bard. And even if the crit boost of Wanderer also increases the healer's healing potential, both seem to perform on the same level, with improvisation granting healers some sort of emergency healing support as well. Definitely a draw between them. Now let us head to the categories which have a more personal taste and could definitely be decided in different ways. First we have the difficulty at which the job presents itself from its start into the optimization. To make these subjective sections as short as possible, let me give you my personal experience briefly. Starting into the Machinist was a blast, literally. The logic behind all of his burst windows and big attacks were kinda straightforward, and comparing it to its outcome in Stormblood is crazy. Since I am blessed with a good ping, the hypercharge phase is a lot of fun and provides no issues at all. The Bard only can be seen as straightforward and not difficult when you already played him in Stormblood, since its rotation and basics haven't changed that much from then. But for beginners freshly coming to the Bard, it's a real hassle, and especially all these unpretentious procs during Mage's Ballad can be overwhelming, ping dependent and require some really heavy decision making. At least the optimizing difficulty is some sort of manageable, and you only have to fine tune your buff timings and snapshotting. Nevertheless, introduced by a new wave of easiness in Shadowbringers, the Dancer came with that stream, and you are introduced into its combat system by sparkling icons navigating you through his rotation, paired with a very short burst phase that follows after your technical step. The difference between good and bad dancers is way less intense than the one of Bard, for example, so being insanely straightforward like the Machinist, in my opinion, that only starts being complicated at really in-depth fine-tuning. And actually you can easily deal solid DPS numbers with the rotation I have presented in my Machinist video for all kinds of content. Therefore, Dancer and Machinist seem to be the easiest for beginners and providing a healthy and happy fine-tuning aspect for people that are loving some sort of difficulty. The next one is the ultimate subjective perception, the playstyle and fun of a job. Let's make it short, I personally favor the Machinist here. May it be my own greed for high DPS numbers or the feeling of having this insanely and not so randomized, fast-paced combat style with internal rewards and climax inside its rotation. Bard and Dancer really seem to be way more proc dependent, that I like at some point, where stacking an insane amount of crit value could affect this RNG, but now it's just RNG alone. And the same applies to the Dancer in an even heavier way. While on the AoE department in Dungeons, Dancer and Bard provide a bit more variety, the single target fun definitely feels better being the man with the machine gun. This directly leads to the next section, the AoE and dungeon potential of our supporter jobs. While at Dungeon DPS, all the daily, weekly AoE fights of Duty Roulette and Raid Finder, all three seem to compete on the same level, with a small advantage for the Bard maybe. On the other hand, the stress level for a Bard is way higher than the one of Dancer or Machinist, in fights with more than 3 targets of course. The dotting and knocking decisions and switches that have to be made sometimes are plugging out the cable to your brain, and being the Dancer or Machinist is the exact opposite. Like Mr. Happy said, the Machinist even has a coffee button in the form of his flamethrower ability.
Despite that, I like to press it in Dungeons to AoE while I drink my coffee. It's my coffee button.
Nonetheless, the numbers are in favor for the Bard, and when it comes to targets from 2 to 3, Dancer and Bard are devastating the poor Machinist, whose only cleaving potential is Ricochet. That mentioned, Square, please give Wildfire an AoE component, by spreading its damage to the nearest enemy with maybe 25% less for each enemy other than the main target. Then we could count this section as a draw, but with the actual state of things, Bard and Dancer take the lead here. The last and maybe most interesting category for most of you, which job is favored in progress and by professional statics at the moment. Therefore, the most logical signaler are the logs of the Epic of Alexander, because the total parsers of Eden Savage are so heavily mixed that we cannot divide it properly. Remember my disclaimer? I hope so, because this chart also gives proof to it, because this content was and will be cleared by any job. So only continue if that idea is spiraling in your mind. Of course, this chart shows a clear result, and even if the Dancer has a small advantage over the Bard in support, the Bard is mained by many people and favored for his slightly better flexibility with being pure range. The Dancer requires some abilities that are handled in melee range, and that can be dangerous or problematic in dealing with some mechanics, especially when already bringing their must-have job Dragoon, paired with another melee partner. While the Machinist really is a solid decision, people are mostly choosing Bard because of his insane group support and utility, while still having a solid DPS support and the best flexibility when more targets are present. Personally, the Dancer seems the equal choice, but according to the total numbers of passes, people are choosing the Bard nearly twice as much. So this point goes for a bowman and saxophone enthusiast. Anyways, we have a winner, the Dancer. Congratulations, Ricardo! While pretending a clear win, I would say it actually was a close one, because the bard could definitely have made it in 2 other categories, turning it into a draw between dance and sax. To sum this up, all of these are heavily enjoyable and you should definitely test out all of them. They share the exact same gear, without the exception of a lower direct hit from Machinist maybe. So go in, find yourself a group that loves supporters, and dance or sing with them as best as you can. Damn Des, you're really biased toward that dancer, right? No. Give me that machine gun and some leg cramps, because in my heart, Laguna will always beat Ricardo. What are your thoughts? Which of these do you favor, or would you decide these categories in a different way? Tell me about your thoughts and your opinion inside the comment section. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next videos that will focus on some healer content finally. Until then, keep supporting your group and this channel by clicking the sub, like or notification buttons, and take care.